We need to be open-minded enough to ask the question, am I willing to think or do something different than I did last year to get to a better result? Because we're changing all the time. If you're always doing what you always did, you always get what you get. And that's what every failure in business has happened is they say, this is what we've always done. This is what we're going to do. And that's why they fail, because they're not willing to change or to adapt.
Welcome to Rep Matters, a podcast for sales professionals who are eager to build their business acumen and become top performers. In each episode, your hosts, Zoya Segelbacher and Caroline Jones, explore the real-life experiences, obstacles, and triumphs of salespeople. With an emphasis on authenticity and storytelling, listeners gain valuable insights into the strategies, mindsets, and skills that drive success in sales. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Rep Matters. This episode is brought to you by Marketers in Demand. Marketers in Demand has in-depth videos, podcasts, and articles from some of B2B's most in-demand marketers. Today, our guest is Jonathan Kvarfordt, aka Coach K. He is currently the head of revenue enablement and product marketing at a Series B company, Symmetric, and founder of the GTM AI Academy, focusing on helping teams and individuals leverage AI in their go-to-market roles to do things better, faster, and more efficiently, making true business impact. He is a host of the GTM AI podcast and State of Sales Enablement podcast. He's been awarded as Sales Enablement Collective's Ones to Watch in 2023 and 2024, the Enablement Squad Legends in 2023, author of the course Sales Coaching Mastery, and is a singer, songwriter with music featured on Fox Sports, NFL, and NCAA football. He's also a passionate dad of miracle twins. Coach K, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I realized that was really long. I probably made it shorter. But thanks for reading off. Very nice. Very kind of you.
We love a long intro.
Good.
I was going to start with one question, but
Please.
I actually really want to learn about this song that's been featured on Fox Sports. Can you tell us about it?
Oh, gosh. Well, there's actually 4 or 5 songs, and they just go off randomly. Like one was for NASCAR. Another one was for baseball, Major League Baseball. And they just played it for like an intro to commercials. Like, you know, they have that music in between. Like, okay, we'll see you back after the commercial. Like that music, like my music would pop up and be playing in the background and then be coming back in as they go. So small thing, but it was a big deal for me when it first happened. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. Was it a side project that you were doing like in addition to enablement, or did you have a future?
Oh, gosh.
Or I guess
Once upon a time. This is another lifetime. But I've been doing enablement now for 10, 11, 12 years, something like that. So back in 2000, you're going to date me. I'm a little older than you. I did full-time music. So I used to live in Nashville. I did music. I sing background vocals for some artists and a bunch of other stuff and recorded music and pitched it to places and all that kind of stuff. So I still write and perform now. It's just not my full-time gig.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, which one is your full-time gig? If I had twins, I think that would probably just be it.
Well, originally when they're 1 year old, their first year of life, they didn't sleep at all, which means I didn't sleep. So my first year, I was like a zombie. So that was my full time, was trying to get a nap sometime.
Yeah.
But now that they're older, fortunately, I have more time and I can get more stuff done. So it's nice.
Coach K, trying to get a nap.
For real. Like it's a real thing with twins. I'm just saying, if you have twins, you understand the pain. So yeah.
Wow. Well, okay. So my enablement question is related to something that I've been able to be a part of, which is really cool. I tried once. I committed. It was very early in my time. It was like 6 a.m. And I didn't make it. I was sick, and you sent me soup, and that was very kind of you. But no, I was able to join, and it's called the research group is what it's on my calendar as. You host a regular group of enablement leaders who come together, and I guess I'll kind of pass it back to you to kind of finish off what it is, but I'd love for you to tell everyone what this research group is that you organize.
Yeah, so I'll give a little context for us so you kind of know why we even did it in the first place. So a friend of mine named Stephanie Boyer, she's a doctor, professor over at the Bryant University, And her and I connected last year over some enablement stuff. We were just talking about research in the enablement space, and realized that even though we have all these communities like RAS and SEC, Enablement Squad, and WISE, and all these places, which I love all of them, I never had like a research group type experience before. And I was like, let's do one. So I threw it together, invited a bunch of people on LinkedIn and otherwise, and you heard about it, and everyone came in and joined. And then I put out a survey in a bunch of Slack channels, and we got like 50 responses back from people like Siobhan Thatcher, who helped 50,000 sellers at Salesforce, to people like who are brand new supporting a team of 5 sellers at some small startup. We had across the gamut of talent and experience. Super interesting to do that. And then we had the in-person thing. And the whole purpose was, let's really dig into the problems or challenges that enablement is facing from all different perspectives and see if we can find patterns in the results. And so after that, Stephanie and I spent a lot of time on the data points, and we did it not so much like an SEC report, which I love those reports. It was more like a educational research paper where we did it like that and went through all of the transcripts of the calls, all the results from the survey, and found patterns of things that came up just from everyone's feedback. So I'm happy to talk about a couple of them if you want me to.
Yeah.
But 2 things came up as like a pattern of that wasn't directly spoken, but it definitely was something you could hear, which was, 1, the enablement community as a whole does not agree on what enablement is, should do, should be measured by, whatever. So we all disagree on all this stuff. And as a result of that, CRO, CEO, COO, CFOs, whoever O is deciding on if they should have enablement or not, they don't know what we should be doing either. So when people go to get jobs, like when I was looking for work, I had to educate people on what the heck enablement was. But I also found that some people thought enablement was just content or just training or just this. And I'm like, that's not, yes, those are components, but this is a strategic arm of how you execute programs to leverage for performance improvement. And yes, onboarding, training, coaching, all that's a part of it, but that's not it. And I keep finding, like, my opinion is, listening and seeing all the LinkedIn stuff, no one, not that they don't agree with me, but everyone has a different angle, which is okay. But like with sales, like, what you're supposed to do with sales, you're supposed to find deals, move deals, and close deals. That's it. And with enablement, they're like, we don't know what you do. You tell us. And I think that's where a lot of the challenges in enablement is, especially with all the layoffs, is that people don't really know what enablement is or can do. And sad part is, I don't know how many enablement programs have been given the chance to show the true power of enablement can do, because I believe it's one of the key points of any team, but I don't think it's treated that way or viewed that way, partly because of the enablement person leading it, and partly because of the environment or the leadership that doesn't see it that way either. Does that make sense? So now I am very passionate about doing whatever I can to hopefully get consensus from whoever the enablement gods are on what enablement is, and then be able to shout it from the rooftops so that both people inside and outside of enablement can understand this is what we do and this is what good looks like. So it's not an opinion anymore. It's like, this is what data shows, this is what research shows, this is what we find. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Yes, makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Noble project, and not an easy one.
No, not at all. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I'm like, oh gosh, but I'm extremely passionate about what enablement can do and want to help shift people's minds around what it can do. But it's a continual battle, because it's very easy to fall back into, it's just training. And I'm like, no, no, it's not just training. And especially with what I do in the AI, GTM AI Academy is showing that there's other ways to enable people besides a one-on-one coaching or one-on-one or a group training. Like, there's so many other options of that. And I'm really glad for the AI revolution, because it's showing us how we can do different things different ways. Like, you guys work with Hyperbound. That's a great example. There's just different things you can do that's not the old way of doing things. And I think we need to be open-minded enough to ask the question, am I willing to think or do something different than I did last year to get to a better result? Because we're changing all the time. And if you're always doing what you always did, you always get what you get. And that's what every failure in business has happened is they say, this is what we've always done. This is what we're going to do. And that's why they fail, because they're not willing to change or to adapt. So
I've heard you describe enablement or the future of enablement as an orchestrator. Can you tell us more about that definition of enablement?
Well, to be fair, I think enablement is now already an orchestrator. It's going to be more strategic use of technology and people. So instead of just throwing bodies at a problem, it's going to be more about, okay, what's really the problem? And let's use the right tool or person to be able to get that done. And so, like, I'll give you an example to kind of hopefully make this more real. If I could have a tool like Hyperbound that I could put someone through a skill simulation instead of that person who would have had to before spend one-on-one time with me or somebody else, like that time is now spent on the actual coaching of skills or feedback on things that Hyperbound can't do because it's AI, but it still can let them replicate the motion and get the practice rounds in, so then I can tweak it on my own expertise as a coach. So then in my enablement role, me having Hyperbound is part of the ecosystem of performance improvements, and I'm orchestrating that as one of the pieces in the overall strategy. It's not the strategy, it's a piece. And so I get to see the larger picture and plug in either a person to do the coaching or complement with AI or do both, so that the program is actually helping everyone and one person at the same time.
I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting. Go ahead, Zoya.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, just thinking about enablement and how sometimes enablement teams fall into the trap of being busy. Because, like, what you're describing is there's tech that's going to come in and it's going to free up time for both managers who are enabling and coaching and then enablement leaders. I do think sometimes it's a mistake, but people measure the enablement team based on how busy they are. And at least
Right.
for me, like I found I had a team at Gong that was like extremely strategic in their thinking, and like we would look for ways to give time back, but not just for the sake of having time back, so that then you can
Right.
actually focus on the strategic pieces, and then that actually has the most impact. So it's a funny, like, it's almost
Right.
counterintuitive. People think, oh, how do we know the enablement team is working? They're busy, but the busier they are, probably the less likely it is that they're working on the strategic initiatives that will actually ultimately drive
Right.
the highest impact. So I love how you
Yeah.
illustrated that with, specific examples like AI simulation.
Well, it's like with sales. Like I know tons of sales guys I've trained in the past, or sales women, I should say. Actually, I'll say sales guys because most sales women, to be quite fair, are better at this. But sales guys they are busy with activities, but yet they have no results to show for us. So activity does not always equal results. Activity just means that you're a rabbit on a treadmill going fast, that you're active, but you're not going anywhere. So it's really understanding, like, what are the actual leading KPIs that make a difference towards the lagging KPIs, and what do you have control over, what do you not, and then really focusing in on what you can do. Because, like, as an example, I'm one of the consultants for a company called Sales Velocity Labs, and we do random consultations for people.
Yes.
And it's all about leveraging sales velocity, the KPI, as one of the focal points we look at and saying, okay, let's look forwards and backwards. If revenue is here and we got to double revenue this year, that means sales velocity has to change. Number of opportunities, average deal price, whatever. And if that's the case, then let's work backwards and say, okay, what are the things inside of enablement that I have control over that can influence the KPI that influences the result? Programs, training, coaching, sales simulations, whatever that is. There's also things outside of enablement, like we could make the minimum price of a product 10% more, and then bam, your average sale price goes up, and it has nothing to do with enablement, right? There's a lot of different ways around it. But that's where I like to focus is on, I don't want to talk about all the stuff outside of it, like throwing bodies at a problem. Let's look at where are we at, what's going to move the dial competency-wise, skill-wise, process, whatever. And then let's do it and then measure it and see if it moved the dial. But a lot of the times when you use technology to kind of analyze from the end in mind backwards, you can really fine tune and say, okay, the most important thing for the sales team to do is not a discovery training because the CRO said that this discovery sucks. It's actually this thing, because this is the metric, this is the KPI, this is the competency that drives average deal price. And that's what we need to focus on to be able to hit our goals this year. Instead of just being, oh, I think we need to do this training because I thought this sucked. It
Yep.
can't be based on opinion.
By the way, I love Sales Velocity Labs.
Good.
I read, like, at least the content that comes out from you from Sales Velocity Labs, and then Kunal, right? I believe is the founder.
Yep. Kunal. Yep.
Yeah, Kunal.
Your example there, Coach K, gets to the heart of something that I wonder about, or maybe I'm worried about. I admittedly am not working in corporate America at the moment, but I'm in a lot of
How
Slack
dare you?
communities. I know.
How
I
dare
got
you?
out. I got
It's
out.
okay.
Uh,
You're free.
tuning in from across the oceans. Thing that I wonder about is I see a lot of people in some Slack communities that I'm in talking about, like, what AI technologies is everyone using? Like, how are people implementing AI? And I wonder, is that not the wrong question? Like, when did we stop thinking about the problem and doing the kind of root cause hunting that you're talking about? Because it seems like a lot of teams are saying, "Hey, well, we got to roll out AI because everyone's doing AI." It's like, well, what problem are we solving? So for you, you
Yeah.
are probably one of the most knowledgeable people in the enablement space on AI technologies. Putting
Yeah.
them aside, what problem is AI actually solving today, in your opinion, the best for sales teams,
Not enablement for sales.
for sales?
Best problem for sales it's solving. Very good question. Well, it depends on the tool of what you're using, because some tools have limitations or not. But let's just take, for example, ChatGPT. I'm able to, like, in my content library, I have a section that's prompts. So I have a prompt library that I have engineered that is ready for the sales team, and it goes anywhere. So like a big challenge a lot of sales teams have, at least the sales team I have right now, I'll just talk from my view because I don't want to assume for everybody else. We're going in enterprise motion. And so we need to have really good research. We got to really be good at understanding the persona personally and professionally. We got to understand the account of what's going on. And then we have to understand the angle of which we could approach that company, whether it's through a contact, through a cold message, through whatever the case might be. So the cool thing with AI is that you can take a mediocre email writer, because a lot of it's through text or LinkedIn or whatever, and I can go to LinkedIn, find the person who's the best at this, find one of their posts that trains on it. I can take that, plug it into ChatGPT, customize it to mine, and bam, it spits out an email that is expert based. And I could give it to them saying, here, or I could give them the prompt, and then they go from a skill level of here to here in email writing without having to do much except for copy paste a prompt, which has a lot of impact, right? Then you have the whole thing with researching. I think it's extremely powerful what you can do with research, like whether you use Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever. You can plug in a lot of data and get a lot of valuable stuff out from financial reports, from someone's LinkedIn profile. Like I did a random disc personality profile just for fun on ChatGPT on someone's LinkedIn, just to see if I could do it. And I did it. I was like, this is crazy.
Oh, that is
and there's other
cool.
tools like Reggie AI does this. Like there's a lot of things that do this automatically, but let's just say you are only limited to the main ones. You can do a lot of cool things with these tools that can help you be better at what you're supposed to be doing in the first place. I don't want AI to replace my ability to research, because I, as an ex-enterprise rep, I was really good at research because I worked really hard at it. And now watching ChatGPT plug out this thing, I'm like, this took me 3 hours to do this before, and now it just gave it to me. It feels a little weird because I'm like, is this for sure? So I, like, for example, we're going after a bank with one of my sales guys now. We did a ChatGPT research thing, and it spit out these numbers and results based on my company's value prop. And so I was like, I don't know if I believe this. So I went into it. I know how to read financial reports. So I go, this is right. This is crazy. They could finalize for me. But really, again, it just comes down to, how can I make the connection with people better as a result of AI? Which means, can I use AI to understand this person, whether it's from their professional background or from their Twitter feed? Can I load up all their Twitter feed and to get an idea of their style, their talking, this stuff? Another example is, I have a guy literally yesterday on my sales team he's going after a CFO after the biggest bank in Brazil. So he found his name. He doesn't have a lot of things on social media, but he has a ton of content on YouTube. I went and downloaded all his transcripts, got an understanding of his style of speaking, and understand the things that's important to him, because the YouTube videos was him presenting kind of like a State of the Union for the finance arm of the bank. And it's like filled with all this content and then his own personality. So I tore it apart and gave my guy this report saying, this shows this about him, and then about the company. And then he's using it in his approach when he's going to the bank saying, hey, I watched your 4 YouTube videos. I love how you said this and this and this. And it's really specific to him. It's not like this, hey, I talk to CFOs everywhere and we should talk. It's more of like, I loved at this minute in this YouTube video you talked about this thing. I'd love to talk about this because I know I can help you. Because then he's going, what? The sales rep actually listened to my thing? it's for me a tool to help make the connection with people better and more quality.
But how would you describe the problem? Is the problem
Yeah.
that we don't have enough time to do the work we need to do? Or do salespeople not know how to connect well? Like, I'm curious about the problem language you would use.
Okay, problem language. I think there's several problems. One is an ecosystem environment problem, meaning that I've seen it with my own team. The pressure to do pipeline generation and to get things pumped out, and they have all these tasks and 20 different tools to use and all this stuff. So they're trying to get stuff done, and all the stuff they're getting done is mediocre, which means they get mediocre results, right? Which is a consequence of the environment. It's not always on the salesperson, Yeah. Then you have the actual salesperson side, which they just want to make money and, have recognition and all the things that motivate salespeople. And so they're looking for sometimes the easy way out, which is not always the best way. So it's that balance between how to use AI to not cheat, but also do what you can do and should do as a sales rep to understand the person so you can connect with them. So I think the problem is both an ecosystem environment problem, where it's the pressure they have to perform at a certain level or they're axed. And then it's sometimes I was an ex-sales rep. It's easy to be lazy. Even back in the day, I was always looking for what's the easy way to get to this person so I can sell something, because it's hard. Sales is hard. So anything you can do to make it easier on yourself, you're going to go to the path of least resistance. The problem is when you combine the environment with the path of least resistance with sales, is that like, for example, blasting an email blast on outreach to all your contacts, that's easy, but the results are crappy. So easy doesn't mean good results. And that's the environment, but they have to be shown activity. Like, I just sent out 3,000 emails and I just contacted all my prospects. It's like I'm showing activity, but it's not what we're going for. So I think it's really understanding the problem is, how do we know what is the most impactful 20% of things you can do to actually make the difference? And then let's clear all the other crap out of your way and let you just focus on that. And I'll give you tools to help you with that part of the job.
Yeah, thank you. My take on this is there's always going to be a function of time. Okay, I'm going to actually go all the way over the cliff with this one.
But
we work in a capitalist society, so we're always as an organization going to have to do more with less. So our quotas are never going to go down. Investors and shareholders are never going to ask for you to take your foot off the gas, right? So I think the existential issue for a company is that our problem will always be that we don't have enough time to be doing the right things. So that's my big picture take on it, is that it's a time issue.
Right.
I also wonder if on an individual level, it's a skill gap problem. Like, when I think about what ChatGPT can solve, it's that it fills in the gaps of experience and skills that especially early career salespeople don't have. We expect an SDR to be able to craft a thoughtful outreach message in 3 or 4 different mediums, because C-suite executives don't answer most of these things, right?
Right.
And we're expecting them to come in with a point of view on a business problem when they just graduated high school 2 years ago. So, I think it crosses a chasm of experience that is impossible for people to have. Like, is that a problem? No, they're just 24 years old.
Yeah.
But I do think that's the problem, is that on a major scale, we don't have enough time to do all the things that we want to do to hit our goals in the way that we want to hit them. And then maybe that trickles down to, can we use AI to create a level of expert that can't exist in the time that we have?
It's funny to hear you say, like, we never have time for things. Like, I think we have lots of time. We're just overwhelmed people. The whirlwind kicks in. Like, this to me talks about my consulting mind's kind of saying, this is a time management problem. This is not enough time problem,
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a lack of good leadership and direction, because almost every company I've been in, leadership or somebody changes their mind on things almost daily. So like, they're always going like this, and you can't ever get momentum on a consistent theme of work, So like, a salesperson's asked to do account plan one day, and the next day we have to have a territory plan, then we have to have a prospecting plan, all this plans, and then they are expected to have 3 meetings a week. And then you have to have review a call, they have to do a certification with enablement, you have to, like, all this stuff, and like, get out of the way and let's help them have more time to do what they need to do, because it's not that we don't have enough time. We're just not prioritizing correctly enough and understanding what is the most impactful stuff to be doing and focusing on that. Does that make sense? But the problem is, like you said, the gap analysis, the problem's not truly understood. So people are just throwing stuff and saying, this should fix it, this should fix it, this should fix it. Like, let's slow down and understand the problem first and the gap, and then you'll know where to kind of start fixing the issues.
In an ideal world, you could think of, any sales team that you've led as a manager or supported as a leader in enablement. If the best salesperson, because you've talked a little bit about identity and like what happens to our identity when AI can do what we've taken pride in doing well for so long. If that great salesperson is fully focused on what they should be doing, what does that actually look like in practice? Like, what's the ideal day for a great salesperson?
Goodness gracious. From an identity standpoint, ideal day?
Yeah. What would they be doing if they were spending their time on things that they should be spending their time on?
Well, I think it depends on the go-to-market motion you're dealing with, because as an example, if you're in a place where you're fortunate enough to have a lot of inbounds, that's a different conversation than someone who's enterprise like my team, and they have to have prospecting time full time. So it depends on what that motion's like. But I'll talk again from my team, which is just enterprise. So an ideal day for me would be, if I was an enterprise rep in my team right now, I'd have an hour or two every day that all I'm doing is prospecting, some sort of activity, research, outreach, connecting, networking, understanding, listening to a podcast, like anything I need to do to understand somebody to get in, and then understanding in my own market, do I have a partner that can get me into this person? Do I have a customer? What can I do? Because I'm from the old school where the only thing I had was Yellow Pages. That's the only thing I had. I didn't have all these fancy tools. I was like, I got the Yellow Pages and I got this, and I got to get through the secretary to get to the guy. That's my only option. No email, phone number was the only thing I have, So I don't have a lot of mercy with some people who are like, I can't get my email through. I'm like, then call the damn guy. Sorry to swear. I'm like, just call him. But anyway, that's part of it. I don't know if I'm answering your question. I feel like I went off the rails here for a second. But ideally, the ideal day for an enterprise would have some sort of time frame that's realistic for them. At least I'd say an hour of prospecting, pipeline gen, something daily. Next thing would is depending on what your current customer base is like, I'd definitely be spending time with whoever my CSM is all the time to make sure I know where the account is to be able to upsell or identify different opportunities there. So that would probably be at least once a week, maybe twice a week, depending on how the size of how many customers I had assigned to me, and if I had customers or not, or if I'm just purely new business. The other thing is that, and this is probably because I'm an enablement person, but I would literally be obsessed with the meeting itself and making myself as good as I can be at meetings, like awesome, which means I'd want to get a lot of feedback on how I set the agenda. Am I quarterbacking the call really well? Am I using resources in the company really well? Am I making sure I'm identifying key parts of the methodology, which honestly just comes down to, am I helping to drive the deal? One of the things I learned as a sales rep was through Franklin Covey's Helping Clients Succeed methodology, which is all about each meeting. The whole point of the meeting is to get to a decision. So I want to become really good at understanding how can I help the people on the other end of the phone or Zoom get to a decision, even if that decision is, no, you're not the right person for me. Because the thing that gets in most people's way as far as customers is decision making. So my job as a salesperson is to give them the information they need to decide yes or no, either way. But we get stuck when people don't make decisions. And then we get on ghosting, and then they have to have 5 follow-up meetings. Like, all this stuff happens because we're not effective at helping people make decisions. So I'd be spending a lot of time daily to make sure I know, how do I run a meeting to make sure people are making decisions to move forward or not, one of the two. And then besides that, it's just about anything I can do to make myself more efficient, not necessarily less quality, but like if I can do something to make sure my research is more efficient, or my outreach is more efficient, or my own time management is more efficient, like that's what I want to do, is be able to identify those things. And I'd probably be one of those annoying guys that if the meeting wasn't worth going to, whether it's a sales or training, I wouldn't go. So I'm like, if it's not here to help me with my goals of accomplishing what I'm trying to do with my business, which is my quota, I'm not going. So now as an enablement person, I always have that in front of mind saying, I have to make sure this is worth it for the sales reps, or it's not worth their time.
Definitely.
Totally.
And
Okay.
I think it's a really important point about connection. Like, I didn't expect that, but yes, making sure each meeting is going to turn into dollars for you is important. That means you are taking time to connect with your CSM, especially as an enterprise rep. You are taking time to build relationships across the organization. You're just really thoughtful about how you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, the best, I cannot say I was ever the top enterprise rep. I never was. I was in the top probably 10%. I was usually pretty up there. I was never number one consistently. I hit number one like monthly sometimes, but I wasn't the number one big dog. Like I knew I was not the best salesperson, and I tried because I shadowed them and I thought I had a lot of respect for them. But some of the best salespeople I knew were the best quarterbacks. They knew how to drive the call. They knew when to ask someone a question to answer it, from like pre-sales to a CEO to whoever. Like they were like totally in control of it. So that's the thing that I tried to emulate, was how in control, like a quarterback, am I, so I can make sure these players are here. I know you're here. Like all I do is run the play. And the reps who are more reactive and not as quarterbacky are the ones who struggle, because they're not willing to ask the CEO to say, I need you on this call to do this thing because I need it for this reason. Most of them are just like, hey, CEO, come here so I can hopefully sell this deal. It's the guys who are like, or the girls, I should say, who are very specific on, this is exactly what I need from you because I'm the quarterback. And this is what I need to have you do, is run down and grab this Hail Mary. But the more people are able to do that, the more successful they are, in my experience as an enterprise rep. So
Yeah, we had Jen Allen Knuth on here a little while ago, and she referred
good.
to yeah, she's great. An underemphasized skill in sales is facilitation, which I think describes exactly the motion that you're talking about.
Yep. Totally agree with that. Yeah.
We talked a good amount about AI, but we didn't actually like dig into GTM AI Academy. So this is you're the founder. We're here today talking about with the founder of GTM AI Academy. Can you tell us a little bit about what GTM AI Academy is, and also about what inspired you to build it?
Well, I appreciate letting me talk about it. Thank you. I'll try to give you the short, long story. I was introduced to AI actually years ago, and I read some article and I thought it was like some Terminator Skynet thing because it was just weird. It didn't make any sense to me. 3 or 4 years ago, I was introduced to AI because the company I was with bought an AI that literally read calls, but it read your tone of voice, your facial expressions, all this stuff, and gave feedback on how the person was doing on the call. It was freaky. It was cool. But the guy who designed it took me through like this AI crash course. We taught me all about how does AI work and how come he can actually read someone's body language through an AI and actually be correct, and all this crazy cool stuff. And he was the one who actually introduced me to ChatGPT when it launched, because he was on some committee with OpenAI to help give feedback on the systems. So when it launched, he told me about it, and I've been playing around with it since. And I just kind of dinked around. Like I wasn't anything serious. I was like, I wonder if I can make a crazy song about a cat in space. Just dumb stuff, like nothing business-wise. I was just messing around. And then as I started to, I got with this brainstorming group of consultants, because I was in between jobs. And so I was consulting. I was just brainstorming with people. And we were talking about ChatGPT specifically. And this guy brought up, how he was using it, and it tweaked my interest. And he was like, I think I'm going to approach tech people about how to use this to do their job better. I'm like, interesting. What tech people are you talking about? And he told me a company that we all know. I'm not going to say who it is. And I know the enablement leader of that company. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what we need to be doing. This is like in ChatGPT came out in November of 21, I think. This was back in December, January. It was like a month or two after it came out. I was like, this is crazy. So I reached out to the friend of mine. I said, like, are you doing anything with this at all? I'm like, no, why? I'm like, you need to get on it right now. Because the writing on the wall was, I just saw it like this. It's like this path opened up of like, this is where we're going. Is AI is going to be impacting everything, especially enablement. And we need to be on top of helping drive the go-to-market functions so that every person can know how to use AI in their roles to make actual business impact, not just make fun poems about cats in space. And that's what inspired me to put together. So from there, I did a ton of studying. I worked with a lot of people. I reached out to some literally AI engineers, and talked to them about different stuff and put together a curriculum on it, and then launched it. The original plan was for enablers, but I've actually seen a lot more success, weirdly, with other positions rather than enablement, because people are just hungry for information on how the heck to use AI to do this, because everyone's still in this world of how do you talk to this tool, and things are moving so fast that it's like my course I have 2 courses. One's generative AI foundations and one's enablement AI powered. I've had to change them both 3 times because things happen so fast. So I'm actually considering doing another strategy where I'm not announcing anything. I'm just saying I've been thinking about doing like a paid newsletter format where I do like micro lessons weekly, so then I can keep up with things quickly. But then people don't have like, they don't have to spend a lot of money on an expensive course. They can just buy a $10 to $20 newsletter and get really good content weekly that helps them in their specific role, like one for enablement, one for CS, one for sales, that kind of stuff. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but I'm thinking about it, and we'll see.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What are some of the other roles that have surprised you that are really interested in the courses?
It's not surprising that the leaders are, but they're thinking about it more from the standpoint of how can I implement AI in the product versus the people, which is not a bad thing to ask, but that's usually the conversation they're having is how do I use this in the product and make more money with revenue? And then the one that surprised me the most, actually, probably so far, is probably going to be, who would I say? Sales is the most loud. I see the most content is there.
We always are.
Always are, right?
Yeah.
How would I say this? I'd actually probably have to say from the, not that this is surprising, but more from the content marketing space. And probably because I'm there more and I hear it more because I'm involved with it, but
Yeah.
I've been really surprised how people like talk to me. Like, what do you got? And the challenge is that I still think there's some AI applications that are just kind of good in theory, but they're not actually making an impact at all, depending on how you use it. Like AI cannot do a marketing campaign for me after identifying personas. I can use it to manipulate and find that stuff out, but I can't just say, CFOs at the bank, campaign, go. I can't do that yet. I've got to do some twiddling with it. But we're going to be soon getting to the place where we can do some really cool design stuff. Like, I don't know if you've seen the videos from Sora from OpenAI, like mind-boggling good of how good it is. And my product marketing brain, and my enablement brain's like, I can do some cool stuff with both training and then with video content using this AI tool, So it's just cool where we're going. I'm really excited for the next 12 months of what's going to be possible for both anybody across GTM.
Very cool.
One more question before we get into our wrap up, if you don't mind.
Sure.
What advice would you give a salesperson whose company has not implemented AI tools, but the salesperson as an individual wants to make sure that they're educated and using AI to their full potential? Do you have any advice for someone like that?
Anybody in sales, first off, there is a ton of really good resources on LinkedIn. So like, I'm putting out stuff. I'll probably have to name off some I don't have on the top of my head, but there's a bunch of influencers that are giving free prompts all the time on how to use it in just ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
But let me back up a second. I'll say this. I would say, don't go crazy with AI tools. Pick one, maybe two, based on, again, kind of like your problem. Like what's your challenge as a salesperson? Is it role plays? Is it in meetings? Because you can use ChatGPT on your phone to actually do a role play with ChatGPT. Or is it on email writing? Is it on research? Like what's the part of the sales process you're challenged with? And I would start there and be like, okay, is there an AI tool, whether it's ChatGPT or something else, that I can research and understand this? There's an AI aggregator called there'sanaIforthat.com. I go there all the time and I find new tools because they just upload stuff all the time. So if I need help with anything, I go there first and try to figure out, is there a tool that can help me with this specific problem? And sometimes there's not. And sometimes I'm surprised by what I find, in a good way. But to your point, it's understanding as a salesperson, what am I struggling with in the sales process? And is there a tool that can help me with my process, not trying to find a tool and try to force it into the process? Because that's what I think a lot of people get to, is they get all shiny, like, oh, ChatGPT. And then you're like, but wait, what am I going to use this for? When you have a purpose with it, that's where business impact. And can I say one more thing and I'll let you wrap up? The point for me is that any business tool has to either reduce costs, increase profit, increase revenue, decrease risk, or increase raving fans. Those 5 things. That's it. Yeah. So in your role, whether you're a CSM, sales, enablement, whatever, the question is not thinking about AI. What is it that I do that does one of those 5 things? Whatever that is. To your point, time is one, but that's a cost reduction conversation, right? Or it could be revenue increasing depending on what time thing you're talking about. But if I identify saying, okay, as a sales rep, what am I doing to help the customers do those 5 things? And what do I do to do that? Usually, obviously, it's increasing revenue. That's what salespeople do, is increase revenue. But when you think about it from that standpoint of saying, like enablement, for example, I do this exercise with ChatGPT saying, okay, talk to me. Let's have a brainstorming session on how does enablement do those 5 things? What is the activities that we do that do that? And then I work backwards and say, okay, now how can I use AI with this example of how it helps with reducing costs or increasing profit or whatever the case might be. And that's where I think you look at it saying, what's the things I'm most responsible for? What's the challenges I'm having in doing it? Research, outreach, email writing, whatever. And then is there a tool that can help me do that versus saying, ChatGPT's awesome. Now, how do I use this in my sales process with all the options?
Absolutely.
I think that's
Good.
so helpful. And I think all of our listeners probably paused and wrote down, there's an AI for that. I could
Please,
be
yeah,
wrong,
it's awesome.
but I feel like
I'm
that's
not-
the moment in the podcast where people are about to
Yeah.
pause.
Yeah,
Go
it's
ahead.
not, I'm not an affiliate. I just love the place. It's awesome. So there's an AI for that.com. You'll love it. It's the coolest place to find the cool stuff.
Well, we've got 2 wrap-up questions. One,
Ooh, please.
and then the other one is a little more fun, or it's just the plugs. It's like where we go and what you're promoting.
Okay, good.
But I'll do the first one, and then Caroline, I'll pass it to you to wrap. But our first one is 5 years from now, we see your
Oh,
name
boy.
in in the headlines for following your passion and doing something big. What does that headline say? And you can think,
This is
I know
gonna
it's
be-
like, it's our one question. I was like, we're not going to put you on the spot, but it's like the one question that we ask everyone where they're always like, okay, you hit me with that one.
This is going to sound probably insincere, but this is genuinely what I would love to do. First off, I don't want my name in it, honestly. What I want is the results. Like, I'll give you an example. Since I went through a life coaching course once when I was 15, and one of the things they said was, you write down things you'd love to do through your lifetime. And most of the things that I want to do require me being a billionaire. So that's one thing I got to do is become a billionaire. But one of the things is to do, I might get emotional talking about this, is to make a Bumblebee program that we go pick up homeless people in limos and take them somewhere, dress them up, get them nice, clean them up. And the whole program is about giving them 2 options. I'll say, I'm going to give you $5,000 right now and you walk away, or you choose to change your life and I'll give you everything you need to have. All you need to do is, I need your choice to say you're going to do something different. And then I'll give them a job. I'll give them a place to live. I'll make sure they have food. I'll give them purpose. And I'll ask, like, what do you love to do? And that's what I'm going to do. And I'll have that in all the cities where homelessness is an issue. Does that make sense? So they can become a productive person in life. And so I want the headline to be about people who have become better because of that. I don't want to be in the headline. I want to be about them, not me.
Yeah, I love
So-
that. This is why I love that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for answering it.
You're welcome. Sorry, I get emotional by that. I've had family members who went through hard times who were homeless before, and I didn't know about it until I found out, and then I brought them in my house. But it's just something that hits close to home, and I never want to have someone go through that without having some sort of support and help. So that's what I would want, is that. So
That's
We'll
beautiful.
manifest
Thank
it.
you.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it,
We
girl.
will be manifesting.
I'm in process.
along with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think anything can happen in that basement, Coach.
This is my empire building basement. So it's
Yes. Pinata
Yeah, thank
and
you.
everything.
Yeah, they don't see this, but there's a pinata here for my baby. So, there you go. So, yeah.
Well, you heard it here
Thanks,
first,
friends.
folks. Yeah, I'm hoping that this episode will be the place that you can go back and look when that becomes a reality. We heard you
I would
talk
love
about
that.
it here first. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Our final question is, what are you promoting and where can people find you?
Good question. Okay, for right now, when I don't have the Bumblebee program that you can have limo drivers to partake in, right now I'm promoting obviously the GTM AI Academy. So we have the podcast going on. There's a newsletter. Love to be a part of that. Next, so in March, I'm launching the AI Tools Demo Library that is going to be like a free course, but all it is going to be a collection of demos from different AI tools for teams. It's going to be like 30 or 40 of them. I got tons of them. I'm just going to promote. And so if you want to have that, people can more than happy to join in and look at actual demos from tools for GTM teams. So anything from AI role plays to content management to, again, Reggie to whatever, and really getting a good idea of what each tool can do for your team. So what I'm promoting is just a free course that shows demo tools for GTM people.
Love it.
Amazing. Well, Coach K, it's been so great having you on. I always love our chats. I'm glad that we got to record this one for our listeners to hear as well. such a good person, a man on a great mission, many missions we got to hear about today. And
There's a lot. Yeah.
yeah, it's been really great.
Thanks
Well,
so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I admire you both. You're doing great work.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Rep Matters, the podcast for sales professionals who become top performers. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow Rep Matters wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or access all episodes at marketersindemand.com/repmatters. See you next time.